Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, I want to compare two higher end premium dash cams. We've got the VicoVation Opia1 and the VicoVation Opia2. As you can see, they're very similar dash cams. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they're both designed to give you really good video quality and record both when you're driving as well as when you're parked. The Opia2 gives you higher resolution options for more detail and whatnot, while the Opia1 is better suited for low light capabilities, plus it adds Wi-Fi. However, even though these are like the biggest differences, I've actually noticed in practice, I've been running both of them here for a couple months, that there's some other aspects that are actually a bigger deal and make more of a difference than kind of the main things that you'll read about on a spec sheet. And so I want to go ahead and share with you guys a comparison of these two dash cams. Price point, just to give you an idea, the Opia1 retails for $225, the Opia2 retails for $250. I'm actually going to be giving both of these dash cams away to my Patreon supporters as well, for those of you guys who want one of these. Now, as far as the two dash cams, again, video quality is designed to be their forte, right? I'm noticing the video quality is definitely better than like the Blackview DR750S that I run myself. Now, what's surprising is the video quality, in terms of detail, it's actually pretty similar between the two dash cams. And the reason I say that's surprising is the Opia2 actually records at 1440p, which is a higher resolution than the Opia1, which only records at 1080p. And I looked through a ton of different video footage, and it was really weird because they actually looked very similar in terms of being able to make out fine details like license plates. And I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and then it just dawned on me, like the reason that this is the case, that they look similar in terms of detail is, well, the Opia2 actually has a wider lens. You see, the Opia1 has a viewing angle of 145 degrees, whereas the Opia2 has a wider viewing angle of 160 degrees. And so while, yes, it does have, a higher resolution available, that extra resolution, that extra detail is being used on the outside of the frame to give you a wider frame as opposed to being focused on the center. And so, yes, the Opia2 offers higher resolution options, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get better detail. Similarly, the Opia1, its specialty is low light performance. And the reason that's the case, the Opia2 uses an OmniVision sensor, whereas the Opia1 uses the new Sony Starvis sensor that we're seeing in a lot of different dash cams now that specialize in low light capabilities. Sony Starvis, good at low light. Additionally, speaking of lenses, the lens on the Opia2, it's an f2.0 lens. On the Opia1, it's an f1.4 lens. Basically means the aperture is bigger on the Opia1, and it lets in twice as much light. So with a bigger aperture lens and a more sensitive sensor, the Opia1 should be better at low light performance. But again, comparing the two dash cams side by side, I'm noticing no real advantage with the Opia1. The biggest difference that I notice is the white balance is a little bit better. With the Opia2, things look a little bit more yellow, whereas with the Opia1, they tend to look a little bit more white. But driving around, whether I'm driving around in the city and there are street lights around, or even if it's a lot darker and there's no street lights around, I'm actually seeing them to be pretty similar in terms of just being able to see what's going on around you. And so, yes, the Opia1 is better suited to low light in theory, but I've looked around at a bunch of sample footage just to try to show you guys the advantage and whatnot. I'm not actually seeing that in practice. And so it's kind of weird to have, higher resolution, it's better, but not really, and better at low light, but again, not really. So that's kind of weird, right? The biggest differences that I've noticed with the dash cams is actually things other than the main things that you'll read on the spec sheet. For example, the Opia2 actually has an HDR mode, which high dynamic range. It basically allows the dash cam to do a better job of seeing, information in dark shadows as well as in bright highlights. If you look at this clip here from the Opia1, you'll notice we're driving around and the sky is kind of blown out, right? There's no real detail that we can make out in the sky. On the other hand, if we look at the clip from the Opia2, up in the sky, we can make out a lot of information, including the clouds and whatnot, right? There's a lot more detail. You can see the sun is even in the frame. So the Opia2 is going to be doing a better job as far as dynamic range. Now, the way that this works is video, it's made up of a bunch of individual still frames, right? The way the HDR is working is the camera is basically taking a bright photo and a dark photo and putting them together to get more dynamic range. That's what the feature is doing. The issue is because you're driving and because you're moving, when it takes the bright photo and the dark photo and puts it together, you're actually in a slightly physical different location. And so when it puts them together, sometimes it doesn't quite stitch right. And you'll see this more often, like if you hit a bump in the road or there's some sort of vibrations, you'll notice these weird kind of artifacts going on with the Opia2 because it has this HDR feature. You'll see it on the edge of trees against the sky or in street lights or cars, headlights, or taillights. It looks kind of weird. Now, if you're running the Opia 2 in its highest resolution option, like 1440p for example, there's not actually a way to disable the HDR feature, and so that's something to be aware of. It's definitely nice to just give you more dynamic range so you can make out more detail, but there is a little bit of weird artifacting. Speaking of which, with the Opia 2, there's also another issue that I've ran into with its sensor. When you're driving around, there's this weird kind of bouncy look that you'll notice in a lot of the objects in the frame. It's very strange, and I find it really distracting. You can still, of course, make out everything that's going on around you, but if you're looking for kind of a good-looking video, this is just a weird thing that's happening. I spoke to VicoVation about it. Apparently it's a property of the sensor itself, and it seems to vary depending on what car you have it in. I've talked to other people who also have this camera, and they're also confirming that yes, in some cars it's more of an issue, in some cars it's less of an issue. I had a rental car recently. I ran the dash cam in there just to compare, and I've noticed it was less of an issue in the rental car, but more of an issue in my personal one. So if this is something that's going to apply to you, I've noticed it happens both when the car is driving, as well as even when you're stationary, just due to the vibrations from the engine. And so that's just something to be aware of. Again, it doesn't apply to everybody, but that is something that I've noticed. Now, something that the Opia 1 offers over the Opia 2 is Wi-Fi, where basically it acts as a Wi-Fi hotspot, and your phone can connect to it, not for internet or anything, but just to interface with the camera. It allows you to do things like go into your phone and change settings in your dash cam, view the footage that's recorded on the dash cam, or even download that footage to your phone so you can access it later. Now, that said, it's slow, it's buggy, it doesn't actually really work that well, the app crashes. It's just not really all that great of an experience. You know, you can already go into the dash cam and just change all the settings right from the dash cam. You don't have to do it from Wi-Fi, as opposed to some dash cams that don't have a screen on the back, but because this one does, you don't need Wi-Fi to change the settings. Plus, with the dash cam, once you've got everything set up, you don't need to mess with it too much anyway, so it's not a big deal to be able to change the settings over Wi-Fi when you can do it right from the dash cam. Now, as far as the memory card, both dash cams support up to a 128 gig memory card, and it shoots on micro SD, as you saw. Now, whenever there's an incident on the road, the dash cam, of course, is going to be recording the whole thing, and then eventually when the card gets full, it begins overwriting all of the older footage, right? And that's the way it works, so it works continuously, so it's always there when you need it. Now, what happens if there's something that happens on the road and you want to save that clip? Well, the way that it works here with these two dash cams is you just press this bright orange button. I like that it's orange because it's easy to see at a glance, and I like that it's a physical button, which means it's really easy to, actually, you can tell when you're pressing it when you're driving, as opposed to some dash cams where you're just pressing on the LCD, the touchscreen, you don't have the tactile feedback. I like the feedback here with these two dash cams. That said, it actually works better on the Opia 2 than the Opia 1. You see, with the Opia 2, you can just press the button once and it's going to go ahead and start, it'll save this particular clip. With the Opia 2, it actually takes two presses. The first press is going to wake up the dash cam. The second press is then going to go ahead and initiate the emergency recording feature. It's kind of weird. I don't know why it takes two presses with the Opia 1, but that is kind of a weird thing. I want to just be able to press the button once, it's recording, done, I don't have to keep messing with the dash cam, So I definitely prefer kind of using the Opia 2 specifically for that feature. Now, there's another quirk that I ran into with the manual recording functionality. The dash cams will only let you record up to 10 of these manually recorded files. So if you're using this feature and you don't at any point, format your memory card or bring it to your computer and eventually delete those files, once you go to use that feature, the dash cam will not allow you to manually save this clip. It'll still record it, don't get me wrong, but it won't kind of put it in this separate protected folder for you, right? And so it's kind of a weird thing. I guess I can understand why they do that, just to help avoid, getting your card full with these protected files and then it can't do its kind of normal recording. But just, I don't know, give a warning or just get a big memory card or something. It's a weird kind of limitation that I've run into that I don't really see with other dash cams. Speaking of the LCD on the back, I've noticed a difference between the two dash cams there as well. The dash cams offer the ability to kind of go into like a sleep mode where basically they wake up, everything is turned on, you can confirm LCD's on, LED's on, and then the dash cam screen will actually disable after a period of time. With the Opia 2, you can do it as fast as 15 seconds. With the Opia 1, you have to wait a full minute. You can't do it any faster, and so it takes longer for the dash cam screen to turn off when you're driving. And I like it being more stealthy, especially at night. I don't want the bright light in my car, so I like the fact that the Opia 2 can shut off after just 15 seconds. I wish they could do the same thing on the Opia 1. It's a firmware updated way, but that is something nicer with the Opia 2. Now, as far as the form factor of the dash cams, as you can see, they're kind of the square-shaped design. There's a little bit of color here on the front, orange on the Opia 1, and then green on the Opia 2. The mount actually connects right here on the front. There's actually two different mounts. You've got a suction cup mount, as well as a 3M sticky tape mount. Now, whichever one you get, the way that it works is it just clips onto the front of the dash cam, and then slides into place like that. And then if you want to remove it, there's just a little button that you press right here, and then the dash cam comes off sideways. Now, it actually can rotate on the mount like this as well. Now, people like this feature a lot because, well, you can maybe point it sideways and record your driver's side window in case of a police interaction or something, or if something's going on, you can just point the dash cam in different directions, you know? Something to be aware of with this dash cam is, you know, when it's pointed forward, the dash cam can rotate, but it winds up kind of pointed up at an angle like this, or if you want to point it toward the driver's side window, again, it's kind of pointed up like this, as you can see, right? It doesn't actually point level sideways. And so if you want to record anything going on to the side of the car, yes, you can do it, but it's definitely less than optimal. And so I don't really consider it to be a camera that can record sideways, even though it can technically do it. It's not a feature that actually really works that well in that regard. Now, the way the parking mode feature works, yes, the dash cam can automatically switch between driving mode and parking mode, and then when you start driving again, it switches from parking mode back into driving mode, which is awesome. Some dash cams, you have to go into a menu and manually change this and enable and disable it every time. A dash cam is something that should be able to, you know, always be sitting there in the background recording, and you don't have to mess with it. And because it can do the switching automatically, awesome. Now, it's got two different ways of recording in parking mode. One is a time-lapse feature to basically save on memory card space. It takes a bunch of pictures and kind of stitches them into this time-lapse video. The other option is going to be motion detection, where the camera's on but not recording, and then when it detects some motion, such as a person walking towards your car, it wakes up and begins recording. Personally, I don't really like motion detection because a lot of times it's easy to get false alerts from just people walking through a parking lot or cars driving by. And so I don't really use it too much, but that's how it works. One of my favorite features is actually impact detection in case of a hit and run. Somebody hits your car, you know? This camera does not offer that. Even though it does have a G sensor built in, it does not have any sort of impact detection when it comes to parking mode. Now, if you want to record while you're parked, well, your dash cam is going to have to be on, of course, but if you're parked for an extended period of time, your dash cam could eventually drain your car battery and then you won't be able to start your car next time, right? So to help address this, VicoVation's solution is an accessory called the Viko Power Plus. It's basically a kind of voltage monitor, and the idea is it plugs into your car and is able to get power even when your car is turned off, and then it's got a cigarette lighter plug, which your dash cam plugs into. And then in here, it's got a couple different ways of actually monitoring your car and telling it, you know, your dash cam when it should turn on and off, right? The idea is you can see right here it's displaying the voltage, and when the voltage drops below a preset level, it'll then just go ahead and disable your dash cam. Right here you can see on the side you've got the ability to turn parking mode on and off, so normally you would have it on, so this guy is going to be allowing your dash cam to record while you're parked, but if you are parked somewhere and you're not too worried about, you know, parked mode, maybe you pull into your garage for a while, you can just disable this and then it's not going to be doing any sort of parked mode recording. Now, there's another switch over here that basically says normal versus timer. Now, there's three different ways of actually shutting down the dash cam in parking mode. One is going to be the voltage stuff, which I like with this one. Compared to some of the other options, there's more configurability and more options for setting the voltage level threshold, which means you can go to lower voltages to let it record longer, or maybe higher voltage cutoff levels to preserve the life of your battery. You know, and different batteries vary, so it's nice to have a little bit more control. Another option is there's actually a temperature sensor right here. I just turned it on. You can see it's 71 degrees right there. And it can monitor in case your dash cam starts to get too hot or anything. It'll shut down for, like, you know, temperature protection, which is another really nice option. The third way, if you enable the timer option, is going to basically set a preset time that you can select anywhere from 2 to 72 hours. After a period of time, you can have the dash cam automatically turn off. So there's three different ways to do the dash cam kind of on-off process. Now, there's other products that are similar to this. I've actually been running for a little while the Blackview PowerMagic Pro. Very similar device. You can see it's a little bit smaller like this, maybe a hair thicker. This one's a little bit thinner, but otherwise it's smaller. Now, the advantage that I like, this one I like that it's got a couple different menus that you can access here to actually go in here. You can go through and you can see voltage, you can do how long is it recording for, temperature control stuff, you can do timer off or voltage offset stuff. So a whole bunch of different things. With this one, as far as configuring it, You just have a couple different dip switches that you use to control your voltage thresholds as well as your timers, how long it records for. And there's an on-off switch whether or not you want to engage parked mode recording and a status LED. So simpler here. Newer ones have a sticker on top with the voltage level thresholds. I'm always having to look it up on my phone to figure out what the heck all this stuff means, Whereas on this one, I like the fact that, well, it's really easy to tell just straight from this guy, So it makes it a little bit simpler in the process if you ever need to go in and change anything. Plus, it's got the temperature protection and a few other bells and whistles that the Power Magic Pro doesn't have. Now, speaking of park mode recording, I also have a dedicated battery in my car. I've got the Blackview B112 battery pack for dash cams, so I don't have to rely on my car battery. I've actually run into an issue pairing that with the dash cams. The Opia1, I've noticed that it doesn't really like the parked mode recording stuff as well. It seems to be more sensitive to voltage changes, and I've actually run into issues with the Opia1 basically dying on me. I've actually gone through 3 different copies of the Opia1 so far. I've had issues from things like power issues. I've run into weird audio issues where the audio sounds bad. I've had some copies of the dash cam where the video quality is just really soft. And I had to send the dash cam back and get a replacement one that worked better. Some of them were hardware issues, like the lens for the soft video quality. Some of them were software issues that had been improved in firmware. So the Opia1, it's a newer camera. It seems to be less reliable, at least in my experience. I would hope that now they're getting better, both on the hardware and on the software side. But I've definitely run into some issues with the Opia1, whereas the Opia2, I've only had one of them, and it's been just fine for me. So I definitely like the reliability of the Opia2 better. Now, as far as what comes in the package with the dash cams, you get the dash cam, of course, itself. You've got a power cable that's 4 meters long. You've got 2 different mounts, one that uses a suction cup and another one that uses 3M sticky tape. And then you also have the necessary documentation as well. Now, there's a couple different optional accessories that are available. For example, there is a GPS antenna that you can get, and it'll plug in right here onto the side of the dash cam. One port's for power, the other one's for GPS. Now, when you have the GPS antenna, it can actually log and display your speed on screen. You can also have it display the coordinates of where you're driving if you like as well. You also have the option of turning that information off if you like. Now, another cool feature is it can actually log where you're driving and give you basically a track log file saved onto the memory card, which then you can copy over to the computer and analyze, upload it to a website or run it in a program. It'll actually show you where you've been driving, which is kind of a cool feature. Another optional accessory is the circular polarizer. Basically, it's just a dark lens. It's polarized, and it's designed to kind of change and improve the video for you. The way that it works, it actually comes on, well, another accessory, which is this like quick release mount. And the idea is it just kind of, the dash cam slides into place like that, or it just clicks in, and then when you want to remove it, you just lift the tab, and it comes right off, which is easier than kind of doing the standard option where it locks into the front like this, right? And then slides off. With this one, it's just kind of a different quick release. Now, you'll notice when it's attached, the dash cam does look bigger, and the idea is it gives room for the polarizer to be attached, and then you can spin it and change the video. The benefits of a polarizer, it makes the colors look better, your skies look better, the clouds pop more. But one of the other things, maybe functionally, is it cuts out a lot of the glare, like on the road, for example, and can also actually help you see through car windows, which can be useful to kill the reflection so that you can see maybe other people around and see, were they on their phone, were they looking at their phone or whatever. So it can be a very useful accessory in that regard too. Something to be aware of is a polarizer. It actually does cut light that's passing through. It actually cuts about 75% of the light coming through, and only 25% of the light comes through. It kills 2 stops. Now, that could potentially be an issue if you're driving around at night, for example. But it's not too big of a deal, but it is something to be aware of. It's a feature that's going to help more in the daytime than at night. It's a little bit of a trade-off with the night driving. But as far as the dash cams themselves, I think both of them are good options. Yes, I've had some reliabilities with the Opia1, which kind of makes me doubt it a little bit. And, yes, there's some weird quirks with the Opia2. But coming back to the dash cams themselves, yes, they offer really good video quality, better than many other dash cams that I see that are even priced higher. And I think that's one of the biggest appeals of them. Plus, they offer both driving and parked mode recording. You get Wi-Fi if you need it. GPS is available. But really, the main thing is having good video quality, So I like that, definitely. As far as which one I would choose, I'm not actually going to wind up running either of them. If I had to choose between either one, I would actually wind up choosing the Opia2. And the reason that's the case is I like the higher resolution and I like the wider viewing angle, which is kind of nice to help me maybe see the radar detector that I have down on my windshield, which is nice for videos to share with you guys. Now that said, I'm not actually going to run either one of these dash cams, and it's not really so much because of the dash cam itself, but because it doesn't actually meet my needs for a couple of reasons. Number one, it doesn't have impact detection for parking mode, which is something that I really want, and that's one of the main things that's stopping me from just running it as a standalone camera by itself. I really like that feature, and this dash cam doesn't offer it. Number two, the mount itself, where I had the dash cam mounted in my car, kind of on the passenger side of the rearview mirror, it blocks the sun visor from coming down, which is an issue for my fiance because, well, then she can't pull the sun visor down to either block the sun, that would get in her eyes, or to access the mirror or whatever she needs, so it's annoying to her. So a lot of times I wind up having to just move the dash cams or take them down off the windshield altogether. Sure, I could maybe run them in a different spot, but I don't have a lot of room in my car, and because I already have other stuff behind the rearview mirror, like another dash cam or radar detectors, other stuff going on, I don't really have room to put it back there. So its design itself is not really conducive to what I need. And then the third thing, remember the main reason that I wanted to run these dash cams would be as like a secondary dash cam to give me that really good video quality that I'm looking for. The Opia1, it definitely does look better than the dash cams that I'm running right now, but I have some reliability issues and the usability in terms of the manual recording feature and that kind of stuff. The Opia2, I like the higher resolution options, but I run into weird quirks like with the HDR feature or kind of that bouncing effect that goes on when I'm driving my car, which both kind of take away from the overall look of the image for me. And so I'm not exactly expecting, cinematic Hollywood video quality or anything, but I really do want a good, dash cam with good video quality. Now, you have 1440p with the Opia2, but nowadays there's other dash cams that are coming out with 1440p. There's other dash cams that are coming out with 4K capabilities. We've seen a couple at SEMA and at CES, different companies announcing these, and so I think the Opia2 was kind of a better option a little while ago, but now, technology continues to evolve, and we've got more competition, we've got new dash cams coming out, and so I think if you're looking for the ultimate in video quality, I don't think the Opia2 is there, and I don't think the Opia1 is there. I think there's other dash cams that maybe are going to be coming out down the line that look more promising than what I'm seeing here in this one. And it's for that reason that I'm not going to run it as like my ultimate video quality dash cam, which is really what I was hoping for. So yes, that's why I'm not going to wind up keeping them, but otherwise I think for a lot of people they're going to be good options. Some of the issues like with the mounting stuff, I know other people aren't going to run into that issue. And you don't necessarily need impact detection for parking mode. You still got motion detection and time-lapse and all that kind of stuff. And I think for a lot of people, yes, they're good options. And so that's kind of my take on the two dash cams. So yeah, thanks to VicoVation for sending out these dash cams for review. They sent them to me for review, all the different accessories here, and I didn't pay for them. I do get to keep them, but I'm just giving them away to you guys. If you want to buy any of the dash cams, I'll put links in the video description to where you can pick them up. Same thing with the accessories. If you want to see my reviews for all the different best dash cams, kind of my favorites, I'll link to that down in the video description as well. So awesome, thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you guys have any questions. And until next time, happy driving, and I'll see you guys in the next video.